Thacmho is a grassroots mental health voluntary organisation helping its members regain confidence which may have been lost through illness. It combats the stigmas that surround mental illness and supports its community through providing educational and cultural awareness events. The central aim of the organisation is to promote the well-being of African and Caribbean users of mental health services living or working in the London Borough of Tower Hamlets and to make the life of their communities a more fulfilling and liberating experience. The organisation holds the view that the best treatment for good mental health is a strong and vibrant community that is caring. In addition to providing training, support services and delivering a weekly drop-in, the organisation have developed positive self-awareness and identity programmes, mainly from its Health Through History project. We have held many community events over the years, published mental health promotional leaflets and various reports. Taking on recommendations and seeing them develop into important educational tools has been a key feature of our work over the past 25 years. For Black History Month 2022, Thacmho worked with the Tower Hamlets Archive to present Black history and mental health in Tower Hamlets.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. How are you feeling? Good. Welcome to this year's 2022 Black History Month presentation from Thacmho. We have been doing this for many years, so we are proud that we are able to work with the archives, the Tower Archives, in presenting this year for you. We have a packed program. As you can see, the morning session is there, and we also have an afternoon session, a focus on mental health, which is going to be very interesting indeed. All of our program is interesting, so I would like to start by introducing our speaker or chair for the morning. We have two chairs today. We're very fortunate to have two chairs. So our first chair is Mr. Roy Hawks, who will be chairing the conversation, I have to call it, with our development worker, Mr. McAllister.
In 1977, when the now deceased Queen of England was going under the bridges of London, I was coming out of an interview which I had at the Greater London Council, but under the Inner London Education Authority. But that's going back some time. People probably don't know the Inner London Education Authority. But I was just about to cross Westminster Bridge to catch a bus back to my college that don't exist anymore because it has been subsumed into what is now called Oxford Brookes University. You probably know of Oxford Brookes. Oxford Brookes is composed of what was Westminster College, a teacher training college when I went to, Lady Spencer Churchill College in Wheatley, Oxfordshire, Column College in Abingdon, and the local Oxford Polytechnic. Now I mentioned that because, as I said, those colleges are now subsumed into what is Oxford Brookes. But coming out of the interview, just about to cross Westminster Bridge, and there was the Queen in an open boat crossing under the bridge. But the policeman said, "You've got to wait, because the Queen is coming," and you could see her. Of course, they wouldn't do that now. Anyway, I went back to my college and eventually was notified that there was a job available in London. I started at a school not far from here, which has gone through a number of different names. Currently, I think it's called Mulberry. Primary. Not the primary. Academy? Mulberry Academy, it's a sports college as well. But when I started, it used to be called Daneford School. Anyone remember Daneford School? My most famous student was Michael Watson. Anyone know Michael Watson? That's his claim to fame because I was one of his teachers. Anyway, but being there was at the time Tower Hamlets Adult Institute. Eventually went there to do some second chance work. Was sent down to Saxon Youth Club, and there I met Stan Emmanuel. Anyone remember Stan Emmanuel, now deceased, from St. Lucia? Was a youth worker there. Then she became youth officer. And also in Stan's office, in the early 80s, when a group, the idea of a group called Tower Hamlets African Caribbean Association, the very idea was born in that office. And we have here today, who is our guest speaker, who I lost contact with for so many years, but all is forgiven on both sides. Will be sharing some extremely important and historical information with us. And I hope challenging for us and those yet to come. So I mentioned that, not to boost myself in any way, but to assure you that there is so much for us to do, because Lakai, the housing cooperative that was started, that developed really quite well, but no longer in existence, not as Lakai. Tower Hamlets African Caribbean Association, which no longer exists. There is a need for such organization in the community.
Yes.
Anyway, I'm being long-winded. But first, I'd like to introduce my friend and my brother. He needs no introduction. I won't go through anybody, I'm just going to sketch on his behalf. Harry Cumberbatch.
Thank you, Roy. At least we all know a little bit about you. And it's very interesting. And we do look forward to that conversation you will have with Matt. My task is celebrating 35 years of Black History Month in the UK, 1987 to 2022. The present Black History Month celebrations came about when Kiba Adi Sigo, a Ghanaian who worked as the Special Projects Coordinator for the Greater London Council, GLC then, recognized that there was a crisis of identity in the Black community and decided to do something about it. Why I speak about that is because we do sometimes recognize that there's needs and we should be doing something that we don't. But what the elder did, he acted on it. It led him to conceive a celebration highlighting the contribution of Africans and people of African descent made from antiquity to the present. We fully recognize the historical links of Black History Month, which is celebrated in the USA in February. And the inspiration came from Dr. Carter Woodson. And he wrote the book, The Miseducation of the New Hero, and the creator, and he was credited as a creator in 1926 as the founder of Negro History Week. And that then was extended to a month. So in America, also here, we have a whole month of celebrations. The original plan that I wanted to do was to have a season of African awareness, starting in October and ending in December. And that would include the Kwanzaa celebrations, which is something we also have done regularly in Thacmho. But after discussion, October seemed to be the best period. It was the time to engage young minds. It was also the time where the weather would be not so cold and children were fresh from the summer holidays. They had no worries about exams, and that was a very good period that we can focus where families can teach their children, tell stories, relate, reflect about their past, and at least identify some of the differences that they might have heard, they might have understood from their education which they were receiving. The word black was chosen and it's reflected tolerance and acceptance of the rich cultural diversity of contemporary British society. It's a unified term that brings into focus the various strands of suffering, humiliation, exploitation, as well as an articulation of solidarity and the building of allies in relation to a shared and common experience. His term, he chose to identify Black History Month and said it is about reconnecting with our culture and heritage, and it's aimed to create self-pride. Self-pride is the catalyst of achievement, and there's no greater truth than knowing yourself.
Black History Month started as a result of an incident that took place at the Greater London Council, where I worked as the Special Projects Coordinator. And I went to work sometime in 1985. And our group secretary, Elizabeth, nurse, looked very downcast and was almost in tears. So I asked her, Elizabeth, what's the matter? And she said, would you believe it? Last night I was putting Marcus to bed. And after prayers, as I was leaving the room, Marcus called me and said, Mom, why can't I be white? And it shocked the mother. She said, I have failed. She said, I deliberately named my son after Marcus Mosiah Garvey. And here is Marcus, 6-year-old, asking me, why can't he be white? So she was saying that she had failed the son. And I said, no, Elizabeth, no, you have not failed your son. You have not failed the son. It is the institution. It is the local authority. Is it the Inner London Education Authority? Yeah. It is the government. It's the institutions of state that have created the conditions for your son to be worried about his identity. We have to be angry, and we have to stir up the younger generation not to accept mediocrity and corruption and tribalism and sexism. We should not accept this. And then urge them on. So we have to pass on the baton of liberation and prepare them. We should never give up on our youth. If we give up on our youth, we are giving up on ourselves and our future. Please. Right. That's
right. Having gone to Saxon Youth Club to do some second chance work with young teenage people who needed some help with their numeracy in order to become more employable. There I met Stan Manuel and eventually met our visiting speaker for today. He started in Tower Hamlets as development worker. He went to Greenwich as an education liaison officer. He also went to Southwark and was responsible for school governor training. Then he left us and went to Derbyshire. He worked for the Derbyshire Council. He'll say much more about this in filling in the details. And there he was assistant area education officer. He did development work with Loughborough University for the black community. Now, that's just a sketch, but he will fill you in. But here is his return, in a sense, to Tower Hamlets. The information that he has, the prolific writing that he's done. I mean, he can't possibly share absolutely everything, but his writing has been prolific. Friends, Alistair McAllister, or you're allowed to call him
Could you please join with me? I'd like to first honor the people who work for us tirelessly. Very emotional. The person died. This individual I'm telling you about, every day he works in the authority. He tried to get something for Africa. Worked so hard, but he died. And so I'd like you, a bit of silence to recognize that. When they appointed me in 1982, and I came into the borough, all the funding that you could think about was used up. Why? You had an organization called Town Hamlets Association for Racial Equality. And during the time we're talking about the 80s, I'm doing a roller coaster, memory lane. You had what you call, in that time when you had the GLC and you had the INE London Education Authority, you had loads of resources, but these resources wasn't directed to the so-called ethnic minority label that they had on it. The ethnic minorities who benefit most from this that we're talking about, it was people who have people power, numbers. You have the Bengalis organization where they describe them as the NCW in terms of need. That's what they're written up. We'll come back and explain that to you. So you have that powerhouse going. So when I come here, they didn't have any funding that you could get. You have to find out where the funding is going, where it's going, and when you turn up to access the funding, people look at you and say, we probably might be able to help you, because we already allocate, all the resources are already allocated, but you go back, put something on a piece of paper, because perhaps some people believe that you could have done it. And when you turn up, they said in the next week or so to bring it turn up before that week, because you want to have something going and get some resources to develop something for the community. Write it and take them. Surprise, surprise, surprise. We can try and get it to the committee. Zip. Then another strategy was to address the full council. But you couldn't address the full council because they wasn't responsible for the pot of money that I'm talking about. I'm talking to what you call Section 11, which is Section 11 funding of the 1966 Act. That's what it is. They have a pot of money for local authority, ILIA and GLC, plenty of money. But then that money was earmarked for the development work, but for mostly the Bengali, the special needs. For the Bengali, in terms of their need. Remember you had Douglas Hurd, the Home Honorable, Right Honorable Home Secretary came down to it's all in here. Fund galore. 1987 election was coming up. The Bengalis there picket, when it said picket, they lobby a lot. They have the power of vote. But amazingly, remember we talking about bilingual people writing application to access funding, which although some of the people were bribed, They didn't know the lingo, have the skills, like some of the, what I described them as the white liberals, plenty of them. So they access a lot of money on behalf of the Bengali community. So when I turn up to here, oh, you know, the TLC ethnic minority community meeting, go down there and find out that they're going to be such and such a day, get the application in. You get the application in, you want to hear articulation, you want to hear how liberal whites articulating on behalf of the Bengali community in Tower Hamlet to write these grants. Imagine me as an Afro-Caribbean person talking about Afro-Caribbean needs in a big forum, ethnic minority forum with more than half of the audience are from one community only. They only talk about selectively speaking with something different, but part of the same crowd who were involved in the meeting as well. And you have people who talk about the mothers, they talk about people who can hardly access English. I'm talking about the white liberals who is writing up the application to get the grant. And if you open your mouth and talk, what about Afro-Caribbean? We're trying to get a community center, we're trying to get a base. And a pin could drop. Everybody's silent. Remember I tell you about all these articulations, people talking about ethnic minorities, the ethnic minorities community bar one. We were not the only people who didn't have funding, but I accept the fact that I'm only talking about Africa. I don't care about anybody else. Nobody don't want to know that. Who cares? Who wants to know that? Talk about single parent family. I did a research on that. You get that? Yeah. People worry that if we get a community center, who will resource it? They're telling you in words, but the behavior you could good at drawing out from them. Well, even if the council to get capital, you have two kinds of funding when you're talking about grant. You have revenue and you have capital. Oh, the authority will give you a lot of money if they get it capital building. But when you come into resourcing it, running cost of it, there's no money. But then come back again, I told you I'm taking you on a memory lane. We come back again and ask, if Tower Hamlet access so much of Section 11 of the 1966 grant, what happened to some of their own mainstream money? Could that not be available to help in some of the desperate community? You've got to ask the question, why did they? They didn't have no money. But if I show you from there, rings and rings and rings. And the thing about, it's in this book, that everybody from the Bengali community who enroll here in this organization, who are doing discussions and etc., from here there are splinter groups, there are groups who form themselves that accessing the funding. So by the time they get about 8, 9, 10, 15 groups of the same group that belongs to the same organization, drawing funding for their little project, while this organization is supposed to represent everybody. They accept it in this booklet when we said that you are a Bengali organization and wasn't what you call a racial equality organization. And they explain it as maybe in our turbulent days, we were like that people perceive us as only an organization that represents Bengali. But remember I tell you about the power of numbers, very powerful. Pay a lot of politics in that direction. You had, during that time, as I said, an election was coming up. So after some of the clever Bengali guys then noticed that all the people who were talking on behalf, they were getting employed in the social services. Mind you, the social services in Tower Hamlet had an ethnic minority subcommittee that put in a bid for 25 workers, right? And they had a conference, and from that conference they had a mandate. The Bengalis had a conference, and from that mandate they went to the Social Services Committee and they requested 25 posts. And you know what happened? By election was a process, they suspended till after election. Draw your own conclusion. After the election, they approved the 25 posts. It didn't happen in Tower Hamlets only. It will happen, the same thing was happening elsewhere. The other social services in Reading, we had Afro-Caribbean community who were struggling to get help. They had the same problem like what I had in Tower Hamlet. The thing is, I used to liaise with people who doing the work I was doing. So I wasn't the know-how where grant going and who getting it and what to do, etc., etc. Then I had Mr. Pender to resource me. Well, you know, Winston, I get so and so and I have to do it tomorrow. I said, oh, he said, well, do so and so and so, and I would write it up because I'm talking about an expert who guide me, and I'm able to write successful bids into that. But coming back to the point that I made, when the Bengali noticed that would happen, they resisted. They approved the fund. The direction from social services approved it. It's in this booklet that they resent the fact that all the group, all the 25 posts was mostly occupied by whites. It's in the book. Remember I tell you, I was trying to get support to somebody to type for me. I was trying to get various types of running courses being set up for organization. Couldn't even get a building. The Committee for Social Responsibility in Tower Hamlet had a room at the end of a flat. And they said, oh, I went to the same funding meeting, and the woman come and caught me and said, I got a room. Would it be all right? One book place. That's the first building I had outside, one Brookside Road in Bow. Then they decided that they would take in that 25 posts that I'm talking about that they objected to, getting all white. After they won the election, because some of these, the articulation or the people who were, I don't like to use the word lobby because I don't have proof. I don't have proof that because to say that the Bengalis, support the people who were writing the bill. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying, you draw your conclusion because they suspended in the book. They suspended the discussions that they had till after the election. I got it, it's written down there. And so after the election, the post was approved. They didn't even have that. We had earlier who provide teachers, Bengalis teachers training, and a lot of other ethnic minorities who becomes involved. But the thing that people don't know, being interested in education, you get nosy. When they go into the classroom and when they get breaks, you hear the little nosy, this one coming in, they went to London school, what they call the place, to get teacher training, they were different. So they still had discrimination there, even though they have Section 11, they still discriminate. The college was happy to welcome any provision that would help the Bengali community. My God, compare that with when we come here. People didn't interested that you approve from wherever Caribbean or wherever country you come here and you want to help the parents of children early age, year 5, etc., etc. But they did that in Tower Hamlet. I get all the information there. All the grant, the Section 11 funding went toward the Bengali community. I'm not angry about that at all, but I'm pointing out to you disparity. We were invisible. That was the explanation that I made. Because remember, as I said to you, that I deliver an address to the full council ethnic minority committee, and I get zilch. I can't even remember whether I had a thank you letter or we had our response. And I wouldn't say I didn't. I can't remember, it's such a long time ago. But I know we had no funding from them. But they approved the funding The same Tower Hamlets Council's social services approved funding for the Bengali community. Good luck to them, they have the power of vote. So, the plan we put in for our Afro-Caribbean Community Center, we stand identify the Mile Bar, the Tidal Resource there. You know, people pass, okay, if they get this bar, I have four reasons why we get it. One behind the thinking, I believe, was that even if we do the capital work, you know, where are people going to report it? Because it's not a temple that people going to gather around and you don't get business to gather around and help to the running car. You're going to rely on us all the time, you know. So, though we're going to give a false hope, great false hope by giving the Island but to have an African and Caribbean community in Tower Hamlet as a center, a base for our own, all that spelled out in the letter, how are they going to resource it? But let me see if they're really serious about it. So I had to write a proposal. And my God, I did sickle cell, special needs, elderly, education, 16 to 19 years plus, attend all the meeting, flyer, writing. We did a conference in Tower Hamlets. One of the most successful conferences at St. John's School in Boone. Had 400 and something people, did a reel-to-reel recording of it, which I have. I get bits of notice that I write out from the recording. And put it up to them. Still no way. Still no way. We had this Tower Hamlets is called in the area day Division 5. We had a black inspector called Jerry David. So concerned, a lot of exclusion in Tower Hamlets with children who get excluded from school. And in that section 11 bill, I must admit that they put in the section 11 to work with Afro-Caribbean parents, but you have nobody on ground to go and find out whether this is true, or they was doing just model and toddlers group for the Bengali, which a lot inside of there. You're happy to come around and look at it and you could see it's evident. 8 point something Afro-Caribbean, that was the community, the number of us that live in the borough. And yet, we couldn't get a penny from Main Street. They had something called Tower Hamlets Inner Area Program. You check that out and you would see how the same groups that I'm talking about, how they felt through the same group taking the money all the way. So this roller coaster I'm telling you about is a kind of hopscotching and giving you things because I have to try and condense that because I have full reports about that. So that's what happened to the Afro-Caribbean in Tower Hamlets. So I left. Let's think about it. Think about a way forward. This is Black History Month. Are we going to come every time and talking about the problems that we have and what we don't get? We must be able to come back here and talk about the progress that we make. So it's very important, you know, to let's share this with you. It's an experience that affects a lot of people, not just me. I'm just interested in what I was doing and following it up. That's what I did. But you could be blind if you don't really understand what's happening around you. As I said, always put my hand up. There are different shades of black. You got to decide which one of the blacks you are. Thank you.
Troy, my question is, it seems like I didn't know Tower Hamlets Black British Caribbean existed up until a man gave me a leaflet a couple of days ago. It seems as if the black community is being deliberately divided into different areas. There needs to be some sort of body, organisation that brings them all together to be able to discuss all the different issues that each borough has? And is there a process that's taking place to do this?
Right. Let me answer that question, I think. There's none that I know of because black organization is a habit of competition. Competing. If you go to a little group, a black organization, and you say, you know, maybe we could join together and do something, people start to feel where you come from, you know, all the time, this is the first time you come. So there's certain cynicism and there are certain things about in the community that people don't seem to want to come together and unite. I think a way forward might trying to find some way where you could have an umbrella organization, but you got to be very careful about umbrella organization because you have fear. Because like here, people used to go and you having secret meetings, or you having select members who are members of the committee. For example, answering your question about coming together, that when the fair has an annual general meeting, people are told who to vote for. It's like a by-election. And that's how they happen to have this guy that called Joe Abrams elected as the vice chair. Because the community were told who to vote on in the community. Back on your question, yes, maybe there might be an opportunity for people to think about, okay, how many so-called black units or organizations in Thacmho? Could somebody take the initiative and write and say, could we have a meeting of both groups? Because it could be done, but then there's one worrying thing about it. They always get fight to who become the chair, and who this and who that.
We always assume things, but our assumption doesn't always be correct. In a group, there are lots of dynamics. I have a lot of ideas, but I don't think, people say I'm a leader, but I don't think I'm a leader. And if I project myself as a leader and can't lead, it would fall through. But we have so many different qualities in people, and those are the qualities we have to galvanize to form our group to make it strong. And we have to come together in numbers and sure of what we want, where our vision is. I went to Holland and there's a mental health group. And you know how many secretaries are there in that group? There are 5 secretaries in a group because they know the responsibility is huge. And that is what we have to do when we form groups. We have to know what we want, where we're going, and get the right people to carry us in these groups. We always say that we are not supportive of each other. But we have to tell each other what is going on, encourage each other. We can't always be strong, but we have to get people in numbers to attend these groups, and little contribution they make would take us through. We can't always be, oh, because this person is this, don't invite them or don't care about them. If somebody is absent from the group, find out why they are absent and bring people together. That is how we unite and stand. And this is not what's happening.
Yeah, to accept funding, they have people who could tell you knowledge how you formulate an application to make it successful. What is it you want? Have you research around the area to see if there's duplication? You know, and it's put on you. You could argue that this is the only group doing what you're doing, but you got to back that up. It's not simply writing a sentence and say, you know, this is the only group who's doing advising young mothers. They have other groups doing young mothers, but you might do in a particular aspect of that advice that is lacking in any group that's doing the same thing. You see, and you could make a case for it. For example, the special education needs of sickle cell children. If you don't understand why a child have got to wear a coat all day in school and could be miserable and not paying attention to the lesson, they might think this child is being disrupted because every time the teacher have to left and go and say, why are you doing this, why you do take your coat off? It's a destruction from the earth. But the ignorance there is that they don't know what it is and how it affects. So their special education needs. I introduced this into Ilya. I write a paper on special education needs of sickle cell children. Ilya was going out. The then education officer called Ben Butcher had an in-house seminar on my paper, but never invited me, even though I was in Greenwich. And how I know? There's two places how I know that they did this. One is left on the photocopying machine, and somebody tell me about it. Up in Derby, it happened to me. I have an approval from the HMI for design a way in which to train governors. I designed something called patch training, and I designed another program that the inspector, HM chief inspector, went examining Southwark Education School governing body, all the schools, not just one school attorney, all the schools who accept government training. I write the program and then write a recommendation to the director saying how excellent this was, blah, 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 blah. But what I'm actually trying to tell you is the know-how. It's taking out what is absent and putting what is needed. And that's what we have to focus on. It's no good that we have in an art group. It might be a different kinds of art groups, yes? Who might do grammar and speech or some kind of thing that is lacking within the drama itself. And there might be a space there for a group who can get linked to the General Arts Council. East Midlands does it. I write a program, East Midlands does it. I was involved in so many things, going to small groups and getting ideas of doing things. So that's something that we want to think about.
We're very grateful. I have my belly full, so I'm very happy at that. And so now we're going through to the afternoon session. Just to introduce myself first of all, my name is Kelly Foster. And I'm going to be acting, or attempting to anyway, as the chair for the afternoon session as we go through until around 4:30 this afternoon. And first of all, we have a session talking about the history of Thacmho. See if I can get all of the letters right on the acronym, otherwise Harry will give me a bad look. The Tower Hamlets African and Caribbean Mental Health Organisation. We're going to talk about the history of Thacmho. And then we have a performance of poetry after that. And finally, with the final panel discussion, we have a discussion on mental health, particularly mental health in the Black community today, with Charles Brown and Valerie Graham. So, as we get started on the first session of the afternoon, I'm going to pass this over to Harry Cumberbatch, and Harry, I think, will introduce everybody who is on this afternoon's panel. Thanks very much.
Well, Kelly have shared with you what you're going to expect for the next couple of hours. First of all, I'd like to introduce members of Thacmho who will be presenting the story of Thacmho. Starting with Sydney Lillian here, just right there, Sydney. And we have Raymond. Raymond will be kicking us off by introducing what we are going to do. So let's start off. Next screen, please. Okay, this is Thacmho's logo, and Thacmho's aims and objectives is to provide strength, confidence, and perseverance to Thacmho members while coping with their well-being issues in the community, as it says here. And the symbol there of the product is a Thacmho, which is Thacmho's logo. Next screen, please. Sorry, previous screen. Previous screen, sorry. Sorry, also, Thacmho's mission statement, as it says here, is to promote the well-being of African and Caribbean users of mental health services living or working in the Tower Hamlets area. Also to help their life experience fulfilling and empowered while living in their communities. Next screen, please. Today's contents, which we're going to speak about on Thacmho, is an introduction which I have just done, and a dedication, a decade of delivery from 1996 to 2006, and also what came after in 2006 to 2014, and then the decline, which was in 2014, and then where we had the Philip Morgan legacy group, which is a continuation after Thacmho's decline, and we'll be making acknowledgements and tributes to past Thacmho members, past and present. And also we're going to have a memorial of
talk about what came before, how it came about. Thacmho owes a huge debt of gratitude to Harry. Without him, we would never have achieved the many great things. And I don't think Harry actually is too humble. He didn't do justice to the amount of work, the achievements we made as Thacmho because of him, because of his dedication, his persistence, his perseverance, and his never say die attitude. When Thacmho started in 1996, or was it 97, after the consultation, black people living with mental illness, it was the era of big, black, and dangerous. Our work with Thacmho, we were a little organization. We flipped it all around. We were big, yes. We had big ideas. We made them happen. And that was all because of Harry's, not his work, his persistence, his pushing us, his making us as members believe in ourselves. One of the slides talked about out of the picture, because that's what we felt like. If you're black and you had mental health, you are out of the picture. You're out of everything. You're on the periphery. You're on the edge of society. You are nothing. You are nobody. When I joined Thacmho in 1998, it made me feel like I was somebody, like I belonged. It made me feel like for the first time since I was diagnosed that I was in control of my life, and even more importantly, I was in control of my mental health. And it was because Thacmho, being a part of Thacmho, gave me, and not only me, other members of Thacmho, that belief that we could do. And some of the things we did, like one of the things, we produced the book Power Writers, which looked at 5 African writers who came and lived in London's East End in the 18th century. There was no professionals involved. There was no professional writers involved. There was no professional designers involved. There was members of Thacmho who had talent and ability that did it, that did everything. Everything that Thacmho did was done by its members. We proved that we had what it took. We were big, we had big ideas. We were bad because we had skills, mad skills.
Yes.
And we were dangerous because we proved to the doubters that we could, and we could not be written off. So we flipped big, bad, and dangerous on its head. Some of the other things, the conference we organized, Sailors of the Caribbean, it was unprecedented. We looked at sailors who had lived, who had come and worked for the Harrison Lines in the 50s and 60s, transporting sugar from the Caribbean to London's East End. We got some of those, and because of our work today, the museum in Docklands has now got a
Bless us with a poem.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Alright. I just want to give thanks to Harry for being on the journey that I've been on over the last 20 years or so. Yeah, I mean, Harry's been a big help. Thacmho has been a big help, but personally, Harry's been amazing. So I just want to say thank you, Harry, from heart. Okay. First poem here. 18th of August 2003. My health took a turn for the worse. It was horrible to see. Psychotic thoughts taking over my mind. Something I thought I'd left well behind. Had my family in a state. Had my friends feeling stressed. I'm not sure why that was. I wasn't feeling depressed. But when the psychosis comes on me, there's not much I can do, except embrace it and run around like a man without a clue. I'm in a different world, although my surroundings are the same. I feel like a superstar, as if I found some kind of fame. As the psychosis gets heavier, thoughts become more scattered. My body on the whole is getting more battered. Strange things start to happen. I'm not sure if I can explain, but I'll give it a go, or else this poem's all in vain. I feel like I've got some superpowers that I can do as I please. Thank God I haven't tried to fly, because that would bring me to my knees. Thank you. This one. Bars. I've got something different, nothing long. Got a couple of lyrics. It's a poem, not a song. I write poetry and perform. It's something that comes natural to me. It's the norm. When I recite my words to an audience, it does wonders for my confidence. The powers that be dropped me in the middle of a jungle, but with God's help, I survived. Now it feels like He's telling me to go and live my life. Strive for greatness, you never know what you might achieve. From a very young age, in God's spiritual energy, I do believe. I used to walk into church late, sit in the back row with my darkers on. I feel like I'm from another planet, but I'm not sure which one I was from. Every morning I wake up, I feel like God has given me another chance to get my mind right instead of going on freelance. I know there's a God, because I feel like my mind went to hell still. From the first line of these verses, you know this shit's for real. Lost my way, then found my way out. It's amazing when you work out what bipolar and positive energy is all about. It's like God said, I'm not coming, but I'm sending Lisa and Susanna. Another part of the plan is a girl called Gina and a girl called Han. A bit of female company, something that's really good for me. I went round the bend and come back. I went round the bend on my jack. Man got section, had to steer my life in a different direction. The mind got lost, went to some mad places. Blood tests, the white left traces. Medication had me so effed I couldn't tie my own shoelaces. I went mad for a minute, now I'm back again. Now people having episodes like it's some kind of trend. When my mind's been on a journey, I have to sit down and gather my thoughts. Susanna giving me a dream catcher, so dreams can be cool. My mind was up and down like a roller coaster. As I speak with God, I feel His spirit getting closer. Keeping the energy positive, I know I'll be alright. When I'm in a certain zone, writing poetry keeps me up all night. The mind disappeared, shit went all weird. Man was confused. The mind had blown a fuse. Went from Mr. Precise to Mr. Late. Chucked me bipolar, nearly sealed my fate. But I've done all the hard work and I've done all the graft. So now I'm taking my time and having a laugh. Some men don't know about having a shower, let alone taking a bath. Sometimes you can draw strength from a situation that would have left the next person on their knees. I know I'm not out of the woods yet, I'm just clearing a pathway through all these trees. Thank you.
And people started to ask questions of themselves. The Leave campaigns claim that leaving the EU would free up £350 million every week could be said to have swayed the public opinion. It was, however, false. Brexit brought into stark relief the woeful destruction of truth, and along with it, an existential crisis for people whose existence within the world suddenly appeared meaningless. Historical facts became an endless, repetitive, rhetorical defense of important figures and events, alongside the sure and steady decline in health and social care. This all took place during the country's collapse for our carers. In 2018, the government promised a 20 billion increase to the NHS budget every year for 5 years, starting in 2019-2020. And they said that this would be partly paid for through the Brexit dividend. Health experts told us that this money would help them further help them stem further decline in health services. But it wouldn't be enough to stem the fundamental challenges facing the NHS or fund essential improvements to the services. The financial experts told us there was no guaranteed extra money from leaving the EU, and it was expected that the costs associated with leaving would outweigh those that would be saved. Okay, so that's a little bit of background to what I'm going to go on to say. And it's important to understand that the virus itself does not discriminate. However, the virus did shed light on the societal discrepancies that arise for those from disadvantaged backgrounds.
I've been around and work in mental health for over 25 years or more. And the reason for that, mental health was not the area I chose to come into. I came into it because I had a relative who was going through the system. And when I watched my mum not coping, not just with my relative, but with the system. And because I'm a talker, I'm not one to sit by and don't say anything. My children always said, "Mum, mind your own business," but I can't. I believe I was put on this earth to, like do some, affect the community somehow. Anyway, my relative, when he was going through the mental health system, he was really experiencing a lot of things that I didn't understand because I've never, and one of the things as well we tend to do in the community, in the black community, is remember, mental illness is like a shame, and so you don't talk about it, you just hide it, you just say, oh, he's not feeling too well or under the weather, but you don't say certain things. And and I remember having to start to question the doctors, about what's happening with my relative. And they didn't like me questioning too much. Anyway, that's how I got to be working in the mental health system. How I met Harry was when I started to work for National Mind. I first was working for the local authority in Islington, where they set up a mental health centre called Lambo Day Centre. And that was named after a psychiatrist from Nigeria called Professor Lambo. So that was in Islington. I stayed there for about 6 years, and then a position came up in National Mind. And this position was now about taking the because with this position, it was called the outreach. Diverse Minds. Does anyone hear of Diverse Minds? Yeah, from way back? Okay, so basically the Diverse Minds position was, I got the position, I came in, and part of what I had to do was to set up a national panel, because Mind being a white organization, they realized or weren't getting black organizations to use their services. And they also had a policy looking at black people in mental health, but there was no one to take the work forward. So that's what Diverse Minds Unit came about to do, to take that work forward. It was a very interesting job, and I love challenges. So part of that was about going, not just in London, right across the whole of England, to basically to go and give talks around black people and mental health, and just to raise some awareness about some of the issues. One of the things that I'm here to talk about, though, is about this report. I don't know, it was written around 2003, and it's called Tell It Like It Is. And it was this report where I, as a research consultant, interviewed over 300 African and Caribbean mental health service users. So, are you all right? Do you want some water? Okay. Yeah. Or some sweeties to help with the cough. Okay, just checking you all right. Yeah, so basically, this consultation was very, very interesting. So what I had to do was basically go around. This was focused on London, though. So I had to go to north, east, west, and south to get the views of black people in the mental health service who were using the service. And it was very, very, very interesting. But before I go there to talk about some of the findings, I just want to share something that I've got written down here. And it's interesting because sometimes you have to look at the world to see certain things. Okay.
So I'm going to invite Sam Ogunkoya up to be our final speaker on the panel. And Sam is the BAME People Participation Worker with the ELFT. What's the FT? Foundation Trust. So the East London Foundation Trust Community Mental Health Transformation Project.
I'm always nervous doing things like this, by the way, but I'm going to try and get through it. This is what I was dreading. That's how horrible it is. Yeah, so I guess the work I've done, basically, you know, it's what Valerie said, mostly. I've also put forward a report, and I will talk through it very briefly. So, between February and March, we ran a series of BAME Let's Talk focus groups. I don't like the term BAME, but I'll use it anyway. Doesn't do the unique justice of those groups. In each of the boroughs, respectively, so Newham, Tower Hamlets, and City and Thacmho. And the aim of these groups was to understand the experience of black and minority ethnic people with lived experience of accessing mental health services or caring for someone accessing services. So we know that there's a lot of literature and data that covers this work, as Valerie has aforementioned, and many of the guest speakers today. However, I thought it was important for us to give our service users a voice again. And you know, with this work, I felt like I've been almost voice of the voiceless almost. You know, we're having these conversations over and over and over again, and I'm tired of it. I've worked for ELF for the last 5-6 years, and I've seen patterns of behaviour that are identical. You know, we've had service users in those spaces that said, 20 years I've been in this space, saying the same thing over and over again. So these groups were, put together with psychotherapists, clinical associates in psychology, and other workers. So that qualitative data was put into a report that I'd done myself, and these were the 5 themes and ideas that came from them. So I don't know if you have the paper to hand, but I'll just guide you through them. So the first was cultural awareness, empathy and compassion in services, and the need for training in cultural safety, role-play scenarios, etc. Hearing first-hand accounts of people from minoritized backgrounds and experiences, increasing diversity in the workforce, accountability, which I'm so big on, especially in this generation. We live in the age of cancel culture. We live in the age of, you can't say things anymore like you used to. I'm trying to capitalize on that, similarly to the unfortunate events of George Floyd. So having a staff probationary period was suggested. Our services will assess staff members over a 6-month period. Are they engaging? Are they going out of their way? To have advocates like Marcia, who's in attendance today. Holistic understandings, like Valerie also mentioned. So, moving beyond the reductionist medical understanding to support service users' needs, the cultural sensitivities, and beliefs and needs of any specific group. The need to incorporate this within our services. How do we do this? If our NHS statutory services can't do it, we liaise or collaborate with our community organisations that do this work. And this is something that we are now doing, which I will speak about at the end. So, and also reducing stigma in the community. So we're doing a lot of outreach work now. We're going into churches, we're going into community spaces to bring our community services in and say, let's have this conversation. Instead of saying, come to us, we're going to them. Alongside that, we have, the need to also include the family. It's very important that, when we have service users accessing services, that their families are involved in their care, as we know that they are the driving force to either the deterioration or the recovery period in which they are in, during the period that they are within services. Understanding social economic issues, so, providing support with housing, benefits, accessing legal support, and so forth, and signposting these interventions. Medication, which is what we're doing with our pharmacy team at the moment, which is outreach, going into community spaces and providing side effects on medication with our community groups. Many of our service users, they're not respected enough. They say, here's the medication, take it, without any sort of, this is what you're going to expect when you take it. Respect the individual that's coming to you for help or assistance. So to move away from that, in those spaces, many people have said, for years, they didn't end up, complying with medication because they didn't either understand it or because their family members were saying, don't take the medication. So it's always important to include the family. Accessibility, so the need to, the idea of GPs being gatekeepers to making referrals. Who else can make a referral? Can a carer make a referral? Someone who works closer with the service user to speed up the process and in which deterioration of mental health can occur. Support in and out of services and signposting interventions and other, awarenesses of services in our community spaces. The last was the need for community spaces as well. So an open hub, one where we are all social beings. We need, I can't remember who said it. The reason why we thrive is because we're social beings. Many of those people who are incarcerated against their will almost lose that social aspect. And where do you find that ground? This is where we look. We need to look into providing spaces like this that can have social outings, Q&A sessions for service users and families, and so forth. So, also added to that, I've done recent work with gay men. That's for probably another time. I'm sure Harry will be able to signpost you to some of the work I've done. The Let's Talk report actually got a national award. For me, it's great, but I'm done with the talking. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. And it's people like Harry that's actually given me the will and the courage to continue with this work because he's seen it all. And And I'm shocked. I've learned so much about you, Harry, actually just listening to the presentation. I didn't know all, the internet and the e-stuff and all that, but for me, it's time to move into action and no more conversations. We have reports that side with this work that I've done and nothing has been done, or these things are moving slowly, really slowly. Prevention is better than cure. So as I before mentioned, at the moment within ELFT, we are implementing the recommendations, we're piloting, we're testing these recommendations, we've got funding towards it, so our senior leaders have backed this work completely. So it's just about pushing it and continuing to push. How long have I got here? I went through that. I should have spoken a lot more about that. I'll probably share a bit about the men's work. So, like I've mentioned, I've worked in NHS services for the last 5-6 years. I've seen a lot. And at one point, I asked myself, I said, are black people genetically predisposed to having paranoid schizophrenia? I don't think so. That's a societal problem. I was in so much, I was so confused, when I started working in forensic mental health settings, seeing the overrepresentation in more SMI settings. I said, this is not right, there's something not right here. And this is where the passion came from for me to come into this role and do the pieces of work I've done. With the men's groups, wow, I provided a space for men to share their experiences, and you would not believe some of the stuff the guys were sharing in those spaces that they wouldn't share otherwise. Dark, deep stuff. And that really touched my heart, because I said, if this is being spoken here, the lack of a space like this, where is this all going? A problem shared is a problem halved, as I always say. And a space like that is brilliant because potentially we could signpost those attendees into other forms of support. So right now I'm working with a counselling psychologist in City and Hackney. We've got a space called the Black Men's Group. We've got black men specifically that meet regularly, and we share our experiences together in a safe space. We've got food in that as well, so it's all good, it's all cushy, yeah. But the main aim is for us to truly address these problems and to move past conversation. Tokenism is something that has really taken this, this work around inequalities of access at a scruff of the neck, really. We have these conversations all the time. And like I said before, I'm tired of it. I would encourage us to continue to chase equity within our services so that we truly have, a service that cares, respects, and is inclusive. Yeah, that's really it for me. I hope that makes sense.
Do you feel that the court is actually supporting the police in sectioning our youth today? Are you seeing more of that coming through than you did maybe 5-10 years ago?
So the other question is about the criminal justice system and sectioning, especially young people?
Yeah.
Okay, and then third.
My favorite psychologist in one of his essays wrote, however, the most serious error black scientists can make is to utilize European definitions and analysis in attempting to understand and explain black phenomena. Now, in an educational sense, that's what's used. Are we inventing, or are we providing, the kind of analysis, paradigms, models that speaks directly to our needs, rather than continuing to use European flags, European this, European that, to define our phenomena, which is not necessary.
Thank you for that. So we've got 3 questions there for the panel to deal with. So we've got the use or the adoption of more African-centered therapies and processes. We've got a look at how the criminal justice system is working with the police, especially to section young people. And then we've got what is the adoption or the potential of African-centered, not only paradigms, but also language and approaches to mental health. One more?
Does he want to?
One more?
Yeah, one more.
Mike Christopher from Hackney. One of the biggest problems we have
is people from outside judging us on their society's ills. As black people in England, we were not like the Americans. We didn't come here as slaves. We came here as workers. Yeah, black people were always in England.
Where do we go? If the government is not looking after us, they're not helping us when we talk to them. We need help, just like the Asian, just like the white, and we're not getting what we do.
I want to know more about this young Black Men's project you spoke about. Kind of, how do you bring people together? How does it work? And what would you call the most successful outcome you've achieved?
So it's a very specific question to Sam about the Black Men's projects and positive outcomes or any outcomes. Did you have a question?
Well, I live in Thacmho, and a member of the panel was saying that they do north, east, south, and west. But I live all the way in South End, and that hasn't reached me yet. And we've got a lot of black people in South End, not just, you know, ones that there's a lot.
I'm going to have that symposium just to write maybe some ideas or have any thoughts about what you'd like to see in elections, or what may be lacking, or any notable individuals or organisations that you think would enhance our collections. I would love to hear, we would love to hear your thoughts and feedback. So I'm going to hand out some post-it notes, and yes, please do enjoy the lunch break.
Right.